morning. Deborah and Sharon are in the process of bringing in lunch, you know, that food that we eat to keep us all energized. While they're doing that, we're going to sing our hymn. Sylvia's going to provide the devotion. Then we will all grab something to eat. And our wonderful speaker this morning has graciously agreed to be flexible with us. So while we're eating, she will be telling us her presentation. So relax, enjoy, and here's Patrick. Maybe Patrick would love to just come provide us with prayer of flexibility.
Okay.
Please flex.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to all of our guests that are here, and appreciate you so much, and especially glad to have our special speaker with us here this morning. Looking forward to hearing from her. I have a question, though. Natalie just got off the phone with a man who was here on Sunday, but I didn't. Did we have a visitor here the last?
Chad.
Oh no, is it?
Chad.
Or no, this was Manuel or something?
He said Sunday, Judy.
This
that's right.
last couple of weeks, he said. Anyway.
I have seen him.
Oh, you have seen some. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's he
Yeah,
doing?
I'll talk to you afterward. No, it just I didn't see everyone that was there. I thought I had accounted for, so I didn't know who this was. So I'll tell. He said he talked to Nancy Rodwald, so I'll text
Oh, good.
Nancy.
Talk to Nancy.
Okay. So yes, let's say a prayer to bless our food. Thank you, God, for this wonderful day and all of the gifts in it. We're especially grateful for opportunities to serve, and we're grateful for those who have prepared this food for us. We ask that you would bless it to nourish our bodies. And we're especially grateful for our special speaker this morning, and we ask that you would bless her words to us. In Christ's name, amen.
Sherry, where are we hiding? Sherry, there she is.
Anybody have a song sheet?
Yes.
Good. Okay. How many of you know this song?
Give us a clue.
Oh, maybe it's that one.
Oh, yes. Yes. I know
Yeah, we know it's you. You'll know when you hear it. Okay, you're not. Thank you. Thank you.
Sherry, are we singing all 3 verses?
Yes, it's
Okay.
short and it's only 3 verses.
devotion, please?
Yes, I will. Here I come.
I'm gonna have to.
Okay.
Before I give the devotion, I want to tell you, Janet and Sue Buckwell and I went to Descanso Gardens last week, and we saw the tulips, the camellias, and the cherry blossoms, and other blossoms, I'm sure. So this devotion has something to do with that. The plants that line our long driveway in Bellingham, Washington are wild. There are evergreens, blackberry vines, hollyhocks, masses of reeds and tall grasses, opportunistic deciduous trees, snowberries, and one huge crowned sour apple tree. Every spring the apple tree would burst into pink and white blossoms that gave way to small, hard fruit. We left those apples for the birds and the deer. Then last winter, during one of those windstorms that swept down from Canada, the heavy branches pulled the apple tree apart. It split right down the center of the trunk, both sides dropping onto the ground. I guess that's it for the apple tree. The tall grass shot up as soon as winter was over and hid the double bulk of the fallen tree from view. I didn't look over that way much when I drove past. Looking at the tree in its death throes seemed disrespectful. However, in the middle of April, as I was walking down to the street to pick up the mail, I glanced in that direction. There in the bright green of the tall spring grass were pink and white blossoms. I stopped and looked more closely. Perhaps half the tree had managed to survive. I stepped off the drive and parted the grass. Yes, this side of the tree was blooming, just as it had when it was still upright. When I looked over at the other half of the tree, I was astonished to see that it too was full of blossoms. The tree might have been knocked down, but it was far from defeated. Life and death are in your hands, Lord, and you are far kinder than we are. Every year you give us your springtime.
Thank you very much. That follows those of us that were in the board meeting this morning. Sherry shared a poem that was just almost as wonderful as that. So I would now suggest move yourself over to grab a plate and get some food. We're gonna,
Okay.
yeah, I have not forgotten Natalie.
Okay.
Yes, I was going to get the food and then I was going to go get Natalie. But thank goodness for Judy. I said, I don't know how the rummage sale happens twice a year without Judy and Jan. They are the,
And my response was, we created a list of the workers. There's 85 of you on that list.
yes.
That's
Yes.
how we do it, is
Yes.
with the 85 people. And then, of course, don't forget Sigma Chi and Alpha, Sigma, Epsilon.
No Sigma,
Sigma,
Alpha,
Alpha,
Epsilon.
I have only practiced for 2 months, so we got
Okay, so head toward the food, and then we'll have part B. Is Natalie coming?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Sent us with her library report for this month. Please.
March circulation was 73 books compared to 71 last year. And we're continuing to discard old books to make room for all the new ones we purchase each month. Karen Moore from the Library Committee is our #1 helper in that. Karen, will you stand up? So Karen's been helping us. And I want to thank Auxiliary for your continued support of the library. Today's book jacket is The Lives of Lee Miller by Anthony Penrose, and who better to write about Miss Miller than her son, Anthony, who had access to all her photos and diaries. This book was brought to our attention by committee member Karen Moore, who had heard about the remarkable adventures of this American woman who had married an English earl. A movie has been made about her, starring Kate Winslet. It's called Lee. Her career started as a Vogue cover girl in 1920s New York, which led her to go to Paris and the art scene there. Her love of photography brought her to take portraits of the leading artists of the time, such as Picasso. Once World War II broke out, she became a war correspondent and covered the liberation of Dachau. Naturally, there are many pictures included in this book, and the pictures of the war are particularly dramatic. Included, it's hard for you to see from this distance, but included is one of her in Hitler's bathtub. So it's full of pictures. It's a very interesting book. So please come to the library and check it out.
Thank you.
Deborah, this is delicious. Thank you.
Hi everybody, long as you enjoy the lunch, I would like to announce that my boxes, they are going to go this time for Red Cross Children's Center.
Okay, how is the food? Sharon just said you need to find the energy to go back and get seconds. Okay, Janet did. In the meantime, if you can eat and listen, we now have the very nice opportunity to listen to Mary Kay, who's going to educate us on her wonderful display. And is it considered the Red Cross Shelter for Children? Perfect. Mary Kay.
Well, good afternoon. It's nice to be here in your beautiful church. And I'm discovering new things all the time as I look around and go into different rooms. A special thanks to Elise Mingle, who lives with me at Brethren Hillcrest Homes in Laverne, California, who recommended that I come. So, thank you, Elise. Here's a special greeting for you. I'm going to start by talking about flexibility because that's already come up. And when I deployed to Orlando, Florida, after the shooting at the Pulse nightclub of, I believe, 13 men and one woman who stood up to protect her son from being shot, and she was shot. And it was in an incredible venue. We had the whole third floor for the Red Cross. And Children's Disaster Services deploys when it's a national disaster. If it is a local disaster, then the county stipulates the group that they will call. So that varies from county to county depending on what their decision is. And the Red Cross contacts either Children's Disaster Services, which is sponsored by the Church of the Brethren across the United States, or the Baptist. So there are two groups, and generally, whether it's our group or whether it's the Baptist group, they try to look at where the volunteers might be available so they don't have to fly them anywhere, and so they can be nearby, and sometimes even when it's possible, people are able to go to the disaster site and then drive home, spend the night, and then come back the next day. And there's also flexibility if, for example, I may be available every afternoon for a week, but I'm not available in the morning. Sometimes I'm able to split it with somebody who can do mornings, who lives in my local area, and then I'll do afternoons, and so we cover. We try to always have at least 5 people, even if there are only 5 children, because we want one adult to be able to take 2 girls to the restroom and be with them, and then another adult later on take 2 boys, and still leave 3 people in the center to take care of the children that are left. So when I deployed to Florida, there was, well, we have these rules, and part of the rules include items that we have in the kit of comfort, because we do not put any Barbie dolls in there or any Disneyland type toys, because we want to follow the play of the children, and we don't want them to have predetermined scripts, because Pinocchio would always do this, or Barbie would always do that, or Ken and Barbie would, yeah. So we try to avoid that by only having things that they can use, and then they can make up their own story. And we don't have TVs on, because we don't want them reliving the disaster over and over and over again through the news, or radios, or iPads, etc. However, when I was in Orlando at the Camping World Stadium on the 3rd floor, so this is a large arena with multiple stairs and seats and so forth. So there was a young boy who refused to come into the Child Disaster Center, didn't want to be there. And then there was a volunteer there who had let him use his iPad. And he really, really liked that. So, in the name of flexibility, we said, okay. So the volunteer loaned his iPad to the child, and the child came to the center and sat there very contentedly for hours playing with the iPad. But when the volunteer told his son, whom he had left a number of states away, that this child was using the iPad, then his son said, well, I hope he doesn't mess up any of my games or, reduce my number of points or anything like that. And his father reassured him that that wasn't going to happen because he wasn't playing the same games that his son played. So that all worked out very nicely, and we were able to take care of the situation. Also, at this Pulse nightclub shooting, I was very impressed that the next day they moved all the cars that had been at the nightclub to a different parking lot because people were coming around, checking it out, thinking about, well, here's a car, I'll just take this car. And so the police were on top of all that and required identification before the car could be taken. And it was very tight security in terms of being able to even get into the center as it should be, because they didn't know if there would be another active shooter, or so everyone was well taken care of. There were 3 teenage boys who came and were in the center, and they sat talking to one another, and I listened in, and they were sharing, well, my brother was killed, and then another one would say, well, my uncle was killed, my first cousin was killed, and they realized that was the thing they all had in common. And parents don't always have the time to explain who's going to be there or, who's not, kind of. And then the more they talked and shared, a line from a hymn came to me: when sadness turns to sorrow, all the cares in us shall cease, and shattered dreams lie beached upon the shore. And I started thinking about their shattered dreams, because that brother, uncle, cousin wouldn't be there when they graduated from high school, or when they graduated from college, or when they got married, or, that kind of thing. And they did an absolute incredible job. They invited us all to wear rainbow colors depending on the section we were sitting in for the special soccer game, and then identified red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and had those sections all stand up as we began the soccer game. They had the gay men's chorus sing ahead of time, and they had empty chairs sitting on the field, on the sidelines, for each person whose life had been taken. So it was an absolutely amazing experience, and I belong to the Laverne Church of the Brethren. And while we are open and affirming and accept LGBTQ, that is not true of all of the churches of the Brethren in California or Arizona or Utah. And our denomination has not taken a stand on it. So I knit rainbow bracelets for people to wear through an organization that we have there called Women's Caucus. And 2 of the volunteers wore the rainbow bracelets while they were in that setting. And then they turned them back into me, and I said, well, you can keep them because annual conference is next week. And they said, oh no, we wouldn't dare wear rainbow braces in front of our other congregants. And I thought, oh, we've got a long way to go. We've got a long way to go. But I appreciated your sign that said all are welcome. So I think that that must be very sincere and meaningful to you. So Children's Disaster Services began because one of our parishioners went to a disaster and noticed a long line of people waiting to get into the center. And when you get into a center, you can receive help on getting loans, getting food, getting clothes. These are the adults that can talk to somebody about how you go about doing that. But if you have small children, every time you get out of line to take that child to the restroom, you have to get at the end of the line to get into the center. So his thought was, we can do better than this. And Children's Disaster Services was born. So come check your child in, then you as a parent may go back and wait in line, and you're not going to have to give up your place. So I've lived at Hillcrest in Laverne, a continuing care retirement community, for 8 years now. And when I retired about 20 years ago, I decided to train to be a children's disaster volunteer and went through the training. And part of the reason I did so was I was very familiar with it. I knew people who had been part of it and helped establish it. But from the time I was in the 3rd grade, as an 8-year-old child, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so I spent my 35-year career in education, and I started working with 2nd and 3rd graders. And so I've always had a special affinity for children. Another standard we have is to follow the play of the child, which is why the Kit of Comfort does not include Disney characters or Barbies or anything that would have a story line. So I was in Duarte following an apartment fire, and there was really just one family that had their apartment had burned. The father was away at work when it happened, so the mother had to get as much as she could for 5 children, and she was pregnant with a 6th child. Pack it all up and get out of there in a hurry before the fire spread, which eventually demolished their entire apartment. The 5 children that were in the center were extremely competitive. 4 boys, 1 girl. They all wanted to win. In fact, one of my partners there played a card game with one of the children, and he sat on a high card to make sure at the end that he would win. And he pulled it out at the end, and he won. So the girl approached me, and an organization had donated these wonderful building blocks, styrofoam kind of things that you could build all kinds of towers and pretend they were whatever you wanted them to be. And she picked up one of them, not one of the blocks, but this. And she said, "Let's fight." And I said, "I don't fight." I said, "I'm a pacifist." And that went over like a lead balloon. Of course, she had no idea what it meant to be a pacifist. And then I thought, okay, we're supposed to follow the play of the children. She wants to fight, we'll fight. And I said, but there's one rule. Any time, for whatever reason that you want to quit fighting, we'll stop. And any time, for any reason, if I want to stop fighting, we'll stop. Now, it turned out that we never had to call stop. She got tired of it after a while, and we put our weapons aside. But in the meantime, we had quite a little tussle back and forth. And I actually had a pretty good time. So it was okay. On my very first deployment, I went to Los Angeles. And again, you know, flood, fire, earthquake, tornado, hurricane, whatever the disaster is, and we're asked to deploy. We deploy. It was a wonderful facility. It was a shelter. People were sleeping on cots. And that's one of the requirements when we do the training. They stay overnight on cots to build empathy and understanding with people who have to sleep on Red Cross cots. And so we had lots of space. It was, Los Angeles has year-round schools, so this was a school that didn't have anyone in attendance at that time. So the facility was all ours to do whatever we wanted to, you know, to work with. And it was before the kits of comfort were invented, so to speak. And I would shop my grandchildren's bedrooms with the promise that I would bring everything back. So I would take Legos, I would take puzzles, I would take toy cars, and I would arrive at the center, and this 12-year-old was always right there, and she would go out to the car with me and help me bring everything in. And at the end of the day, she was right there, and she would help me take everything out to my car. And at the end, when the people in charge said, okay, we found housing for everyone, and we'll be closing the center down. Thank you for your service, but you're done. So we had no children in the center at that point, and other people left, returned to their homes. And this young girl and I were the last two. And I told her how much I appreciated her and how much it meant that she was so helpful to me. And she said, "Do you know why you're here?" And I said, "Yes, I know why I'm here." "Did you know there was a fire?" "Yes." And then she said, "Do you care?" So we don't ask children questions. We let them share whatever they want to share, and we listen. And of course, we have lots of questions. I wanted to know, did you have a pet? Did the pet get out safely? where are you going to live next? Where do you go to school now? We don't ask any of those questions. So I think she thought I was a paid employee who had been given this responsibility. And by not asking her any questions, she wondered if I cared. And my response was, that's why I'm here. Because I do care. So those are a few stories of things that I have experienced. I deployed to Oklahoma at one point, and so many people at Hillcrest, where Elise and I live, thanked me for doing this. And it was almost as if they thought I was the one and only person from Hillcrest to do this. So I invited everyone who had ever deployed to write an article for a newsletter we call The Happenings. And they did. And we had stories from 9/11 and their experiences after 9/11. We had stories from all over the country and people who had deployed, whether it was San Diego or Chicago or the East Coast or whatever it might happen to be. And I, in that process, broadened the knowledge of Hillcresters that there are many people who have deployed on behalf of Children's Disaster Services. So that was good news all the way around, and I was happy to be able to facilitate that and do that. So if you're interested in becoming a volunteer, you go through a training, and it's all day Saturday and a half day on Sunday till church starts. We hold it at the Laverne Church of the Brethren. But trainings are held all over the country, some on Friday and Saturday, others on Saturday and Sunday. And you are required to have a background check, and you're required to have 2 letters of recommendation, and to indicate that you are willing to deploy. And again, one of our Hillcrest residents comes and takes pictures for the badges that people then are given and that they wear to denote that they have been through the training and that they are certified to be volunteers. The Red Cross is absolutely incredible. I have deployed with them several times. They pick up the cost for my transportation. They don't charge Children's Disaster Services. They pay for my hotel. They give each person who is deploying a credit card to buy meals, to buy replacement things for the kit of comfort. Their generosity is incredible. And they provide a car to take you from the airport to the hotel where you will be staying, etc. So they're absolutely amazing. They feed the children, they feed the parents, they feed the child care workers. It is just incredible. The things that the children like most to do is to play with Play-Doh, and there are often empty boxes that come to the center, and children like to hide. And when they hide, we pretend we have no idea where they are. Has anyone seen Johnny? No. Well, when's the last time you saw him. Well, I thought he was here a couple minutes ago, but he's not here anymore. And then they stayed perfectly quiet inside their box until finally they reveal themselves. And then we are so surprised to see them. This past year, 2004, I deployed 3 times. One was to Lake Isabella, where they had had fires through Joshua Tree National Park. And we had a young boy, probably 6 years old, and we had a cell phone that no longer worked. And about 20 minutes would go by and he'd pick up the cell phone and say, "Hurry, hurry, there's a fire, come quick, come quick." So we would, all of us in the center would come right over and we'd have a glass and pretend to put out the fire. And then he would say, it's all better now. And we'd leave. 20 minutes later, come quick, there's a fire. It's burning. Hurry, hurry. We do it all again. And when I told this story, someone said, it sounds like he needs therapy. I said, I think he got therapy from our role playing and trying to hear what he was saying, understand his fear, and put out the fire. Now, very possibly he may need more, but hard to tell. Which brings me to another point, which is we don't talk about what we believe or what our religion is. We try to let our behavior speak for us through kindness and gentleness and understanding. And the reason is not that we don't firmly believe, but we aren't there to continue to nurture or answer questions or be part of this child's life, because when it's over, it's over. And we don't want to get a child interested in thinking, oh, this would be a good idea, when we aren't there to follow up and follow through. If you have any questions you'd like to ask me, I will be glad to respond to those.
Mary Kay, what's in this comfort kit?
Yes.
Okay. There are card games. There's a flat map that we put on the floor so you can send cards all the way around it. And there are paints and books so we can read to them. And the other thing I want to mention is that parents are more than welcome to come in and spend some time. We prefer that if they come, that they stay until they're ready to go. Because if they show up and then they leave, children feel abandoned again. And how many of you knew of someone who had a home burned in the recent fires in Pacific Palisades or Pasadena or, yeah, we've got a number, at least 3, maybe more, who know of people. We had 3 teams in various parts of our county who responded to the fire. I did not. I had other obligations that week, but I did help our volunteers when they would come home. They came home to Hillcrest, where we had rented rooms for them, and I would let them in, because doors get locked and then you can't get in, or reservations were made for other people, and then I needed to move somebody from here to here or there to there, and so I did try to help in that manner. And I did think of one more thing, and I'll get back to your questions, but we have a book, and we have this available for parents when they first come, in case they want to see it. And the people I talked to who did deploy to those recent fires, they have had a lot of experience in different situations, and everyone is a little bit different, every situation, even though it may be a fire both places or whatever. They said they had never had so many children crying, and they would not stop. They just cried and cried and cried. So, but to help parents understand what goes on in the centers and to explain a little bit more, this book is called Maria's Kit of Comfort. Maria peeks in and sees bubbles up there. The beautiful bubbles float high in the air. So sometimes if we have access to the outside, we go outside and blow bubbles, and they chase bubbles and bat them around, and they like bubbles. She feels a bit shy, but then hears someone say, "Oh, welcome, Maria. Please come in and play." The soft purple dough helps Maria relax. She squeezes and rolls it and marks it with tracks. The picture she paints shows a world that is sad. It lets her be frightened or worried or mad. Then there's a little explanation on the other page that parents can, or caregivers can help understand. The puppet can talk when Maria's nearby. "I lost all my toys," Bunny says with a cry. She picks out some books and sits on the floor. She reads about problems and feelings and more. There's danger, but look, there is help on the way. Emergency vehicles saving the day. And sometimes when they play with the little trucks, the ambulances, the fire trucks on the floor, and move them around on the mat, they reimagine what has happened, or a helicopter picking them up and taking them to safety. The children toss beanbags up high in the sky. Maria jumps higher for one that flies by. Maria sees Jackson and shows him a game. Their language is different. Their play is the same. The puzzles are scattered. It looks like a mess, but friends work together, and now there's success. It's easy to talk in this comforting space. Maria smiles back at a welcoming face. And if we see a child alone, we ask for permission to sit next to them. And I usually bring a chair because I can no longer get up off the floor very easily. Maria finds Teddy and snuggles him tight. "Don't worry," she smiles as she whispers, "Good night." The bubbles look peaceful while floating away. Maria feels hope for a better new day. And then, just like I've displayed out here, we have a kit of comfort. I have taken kit of comforts to the airport and given them to people traveling to Texas or Arizona, and then they return them, and we have 5 complete kits that we keep at the Laverne Church of the Brethren, and we're happy to share them wherever they're needed. So, and then there's a copy of that, and there's a copy of that in each kit of comfort as well. And I'm looking for the name. Unlike the group that is wonderful and gives stuffed animals and toys away, we don't. We collect them and keep them in the kit of comfort. Children will ask, can I take this with me? No, we need to keep it in here for the next person or the next group that experiences a disaster and needs some help. And once in a while, we'll have a child find something and say, it's mine. You can't have it. It's mine. So we kind of let that play out. And then if it continues, once in a while we take it away, put it away out of sight so that it no longer becomes a bone of contention among children or groups of children or somebody trying to snatch it when nobody's looking. Okay, other questions you might have?
What can we do to help?
Well, prayers are always appreciated. And I'll leave a brochure. I left them in the car, but I'll leave a brochure in case anybody wants to know more about it. I have found that it's probably best to go through the training and deploy if you're retired, because you have a job. You're not going to leave that job for a week or, to go someplace else and spend time with children. So that seems to work best. We encourage all kinds of background, all kinds of languages. So if you speak a second language, that's always really helpful because you just don't know. I trained a group of Muslims at one point, and they wanted their prayers at certain times of the day, so we established that, built that into the schedule. And I learned that they do not allow dogs into their homes, so we didn't have any dogs, but when we have the child care center, we do have people that come around with pets and let the children pet them, and the children absolutely love it when we're in a situation where a police officer or a firefighter comes into the child care center and sits with them and spends, 15, 20 minutes in the center with the children. And that's just kind of the best thing ever.
Well, we thank you. This has been
Well,
fantastic.
Thank you. You've been a lovely audience. I appreciate it.